Good afternoon, Atlanta. You're listening to WCEG Network. We are the WCEG Talk Radio. You can watch us live on Smart TV, YouTube, uh, LinkedIn, WCEG Network. You can click on live stream, and we are live now. We also are on YouTube. We are the Worldwide Empowerment Group. My name is Herman Anderson. I'm one of the co-hosts. Anthony Aiken is my other co-host. And we have a guest we will be introducing to you as we move into the program. Uh, One other thing I need to let you know, the topics and opinion are those of the show host and guests, not WCEG Network. And WCEG Network is a nonprofit organization. We would like to have a donation, and our office number is, we'll come back and give you the office number as we get started. Anthony, how are you today?
Herman, I am just absolutely great. I thank God for another day. Yesterday we had nothing but rain in Atlanta, but look at God what's done today. It's beautiful outside. So it's a blessing to be here. But we're even more excited about the guest that we have today. Outstanding young man, great background, and he's going to provide us some great information about his career, his background, and what he's doing now, and how he's going to help motivate some other veterans. So I'm back to you, Herman, and let's get started with our show before we start doing our interview.
Okay, we have we do a few minutes of current topics of the last couple of weeks. So we have one or two that we want to just mention to you today to make you aware of. And the first one that I would like to mention is Congress is proposing 5 VA benefit cuts for veterans, and those five propose removing disability pay for veterans who work. Proposal 2, ending TDI, 100% disability, and I will tell you what TDI means before we get off the air. Number 3 is taxing VA disability benefit. 4 is ending disability compensation for veterans with 10 and 20% disability. And the 5th one is reducing VA disability compensation by 30% once veteran hit Social Security retirement age. So those are topics that we need to, veterans in our community need to make sure we keep our representatives.
Now, Herman, you know, and I and everybody else know, we have a 700,000 voting block here in the state of Georgia. So just think about that across the country. Every veteran should be in an uproar about that insultive type recommendation that we just heard.
Yes.
I mean, we have members of Congress that served 4 years, and when they retire, they had 100% pay. And yet we have veterans that have served in all kinds of environment, and we leave at 50% and 2.5% every year after that. And now they want to cut it and tie that into Social Security. That's an insult.
It is.
So I would hope that our veterans and listeners around the world would rally up and tell your constituents that we need to make our leaders accountable for this stupidity that's being put on paper for us to even listen to. It's crazy.
It really is. So we can weave in other ones as we get started. At this time, let me introduce to you Mr. Paul Harris. He say some people call him Sarge, but he was born in the tiny Neville's Isle in British West Indies. As a young man, he was always intrigued by cooking. He joined the military, and in the military, he was became a draftsman. Then he was ended up being a cook in according to his bio, he lacks that. And currently, he is the executive chef at the Renaissance Atlanta. Mr. Harris, how are you?
Take off your
Muted.
mute. You're muted. Very good.
Morning, gentlemen. Thank you for
Morning.
and thanks for having me, and I appreciate the opportunity that you guys have given me to not only showcase who I am, but the struggles and the opportunities that I've had to just to even get where we are now. And with what you just said, that definitely have me in an uproar because I know the struggles that I even went through to get to here, and even others around me.
Well, one thing about this show, we're going to give you the opportunity to let the world know about those struggles, but your perseverance to get through those struggles to be where you are today. Herman and everybody else, I had the opportunity with my queen to meet Chef Harris at the Renaissance Concord one morning at breakfast, and just his demeanor and speaking with him. And once I found out he was a veteran, I said, he's ideal for our radio show. And I'm very happy that, he accepted. So I tell you what, why don't we start off with, a little bit of your background. Herman gave a little introduction to you, but tell us a little bit about your background and how did that transition for you going into the military?
All right, so being from the Caribbean is a very tiny island with a population of only 10,000 that where I grew up in the Caribbean, where the opportunity to grow was embedded in hospitality. So no matter what I did, I was always around hospitality. So therefore it was part of me. While growing up, I did the regular stuff that the regular kids would do. I was a Cub Scout, Eagle Scout, went on to be in the cadets. So therefore military was being instilled in me even as a young man. After leaving, while growing up on that island, my mother was a chef, so therefore I was always intrigued with food and always was around food. And but my love was actually architecture, drawing. And my father being a contractor, I kind of leaned more to that side more when I ended up leaving that island. Architecture took me throughout the Caribbean, from the British West Indies to the U.S. Virgin Islands to Miami. In the early 90s, that little, what you say, recession caused me to end up joining the military. And when I joined the Army, it was recommended by family members because there were other family members that was in the Army. I then joined the Army as a draftsman, working for the Army Corps engineer. But then shortly after that, 2 years later, they did what you call a mandatory reclass and downsized of that particular career field. And mandatory reclassed me to logistics, which was somewhat doing the same thing, but instead of designing plans for homes and buildings, I was designing plans for equipment being moved around the world. That career took off. I learned how to operate every piece of equipment from the smallest forklift to the biggest gantry crane on the ships. While doing that, I became a specialist to where I was the one throughout my career, had multiple assignments. Just name a spot in the world, I was there. I was one of the few that got assigned to Antarctica to move the scientists from Antarctica to Australia, Korea, Hawaii, the Southwest Asia, Egypt, in Southwest Asia. Just about all those countries in the Southwest Asia, I've actually touched them. So going through all that, my love for food never changed. So when nightfall, I always found a way to find myself either in a hotel or a restaurant and get into the cuisine of those local countries. On my ending part, close to my ending part of my career as a logistics portion of it, in Afghanistan, I got hurt. My vehicle got in an accident. And I'm coming back to the States, actually right back here to Atlanta, where I had to have multiple back surgeries. I was then considered paralyzed, and they said doctors said I would never walk again.
Wow.
With the goal of trying to get back, I managed to not only get back strong, but I was able to walk faster than most soldiers actually even run. I remember right after that, I got reclassed to food service because they said I couldn't continue doing all that heavy stuff, doing heavy equipment. So they reclassed me to my love, food. While reclassing, that's when we found out that I was walking faster than most kids run. My first on during my PT test, I did 2.5 miles in 16 and a half minutes, and it was like I had to be running.
Wow.
So he walked the next morning. It was a cold November. I could remember it like it was yesterday. And he decided to walk with me just to make sure that I wasn't running. I actually cut 30 seconds off of that walk to where I was doing it in 16 minutes. And he was like, it can't be real, but I'm watching you walk. But with that said, it went on. While they're in school, I aced school to the point where that was right after Obama changed a lot of things with the system. There was a lot of soldiers getting out of the military and couldn't find jobs, couldn't transition to the civilian life. And he decided to start up a system where there was two career fields he started with. One was cooks, the other one was truck drivers, to where they got their certifications while in the military. So therefore, while coming out, the transition would be a lot smoother. So with that said, all branch of service, instead of going to individual culinary arts school, they all went to one school. And the curriculum was guidelined by the CIA in New York. As non-commissioned officers going to that school, if you are a non-commissioned officer, once you ace that school, you then got sent to that school to get your degree in culinary arts. So therefore, that was a starting part that helped you with your transition. After that, that's where my culinary career really took off. I then was assigned to Hunter Army Airfield. At Herman Anderson Airfield, I was assigned to Ranger Battalion. And at Ranger Battalion, I was preparing troops to going overseas, but then they came up with this, DOD came up with this thing, Congress, that a lot of soldiers was getting injured on the front line. And they thought that the reason why soldiers was getting injured was because of the fact that lack of nutrition. Most soldiers were eating MREs on the front line and not hot food. So therefore, the nutrition level was extremely low. So they came up with this game plan of figuring out which team can actually take a mobile kitchen on the front line, set up and feed the fastest, most effective. With that, a few of our teams went to NTC and trained for it. And my team was chosen to actually go to Fallujah and set up and take care of soldiers. So I ended up being reassigned to 4th Infantry Brigade, who was running the front line in Fallujah, and I went there. Now, the reason why I bring that up is because that's where the second accident happened, which caused me to eventually having to be retired. While there in Afghanistan, while moving from Ramadi, in Iraq, while moving from Ramadi to Fallujah, on the way back from Fallujah, I got in another accident, which kind of left me again back in the same situation I was in when I was in coming back from Afghanistan. So the Army decided that, hey, with all the injuries that I had, it would make sense that rehab was extremely difficult. So therefore, they would temporarily retire me. And at the same time, right before the temporary retire me, I had just applied for my actual retirement. So I had 2 years of retirement coming out of the military, and it was temporary retired. Now, the next reason why I bring that up, because it might sound like it's a good thing, but it actually was a bad thing to a certain extent, because being that you're temporarily retired, it's extremely hard for you once you transition out to get any support, because you're being treated and medically treated, but financially you have not been your file is still active on the military side. So I decided, and so therefore the only funds that's coming in at the time, they go ahead and transition you funds wise, but benefits wise, it makes it hard because they're still working that process. And then it wasn't until 6 months later after getting out that where I wasn't able to get my benefits. So after getting out and rehabbing, I decided to try to go back to school to try to use my GI Bill, thinking that I would be able to pull the funds from that. But the only funds I was able to pull from that was the school funds for school. I wasn't able to pull the BAH because the exact words was, well, you're already getting BAH, which had already stopped, because once you transition, all that stops. And it took, like I said, 6 months before you could get that back up and going. Now, with that transition, it caused me to end up being homeless, because by the time I got back here to Atlanta, the home that I had here was totally vandalized. And I took all my savings trying to put it back together. But before you know it, while I was deployed, letters were sent out that we never got, stating that that the mortgage company was changed. So here it is. I'm sending money to a mortgage company that doesn't exist anymore. That money has up until this day haven't even been returned back to me. And new company now forecloses my home, and now I have no place for my family. So now I'm on the streets, having to survive, no job. Even with the multiple degrees, it's been hard. It was hard for me to even find a job. I'll walk into place after place with resumes, and they were like, "Oh, we have nothing." It wasn't until I went to a sports bar, and it was a small sports bar called Dugan's, and I said, "Hey, I'm willing to be a dishwasher." And they were like, "Well, we ain't got nothing." And I said, "When I looked around and said, you got about five to six tables that the guests have left, and the food is still on the table. So I know you need a dishwasher. I know you need a busser. So I tell you what, I said, I'm willing to start right now." And he didn't even start me right then. He gave me an application. Eventually, I told him, "Hey, I'm a wounded vet." And that kind of triggered him a little bit when I said I was a wounded vet. He then gave me the job, but he never started me until the next day. And the only reason why, and then I started working. I showed him that I could do it. Eventually, one day he had a cook call out. And when the cook called out, he needed help on the line. I said, "Hey, I could help you on the line." And he said, "You sure?" I said, "Yeah, I could help you." Well, that day, the sales jumped with me being on the line. For some reason, I bent the rules. I didn't know the rules of cooking chicken wings, and I did it my way. And before you know it, everybody was asking for chicken wings the way I was cooking it. And that night, the sales jumped, and he was like, "Hey, you mind transitioning from a dishwasher to a cook?" I said, "I'm fine doing that." And that's where it all started. And before you know it, I was in school at the same time. I was going back and forth to school. The school kind of helped me. At AI, there's an actual veterans of vet office. It's no longer now there, but at the time when I was going through, there was veteran support there. And the young lady gave me a card, a Marta card. She said, "Well, I know you're going through hard times, but this Marta card could help you get around." So I was sleeping in my truck, going back and forth with a Marta card. And before you know it, I was getting myself. But right there in school, I sat there, and with one of my counselors, I developed a career ladder which had two sides. And at the two sides, and the reason why it was two sides is because I liken it to my ladder, because I'm also a mason. So I liken it into our ladders, our masonry ladder. And then with that said, I kind of create my career path to get to the top. Where I'm at now was never really on the ladder. Where I am was off to the side of the ladder. The top of my ladder was to be a professor. And believe it or not, with all the struggles and everything going through every career, every job that I went to, I was able to accomplish everything on the ladder and make it to where I'm at now. So that's basically me in a nutshell. I went from being a dishwasher to a line cook at that same bar to a line cook at the Braves. From the line cook at the Braves, within 2-3 weeks being a line cook at Braves, I ended up being the actual club chef for the Go Club. Then a month later, I was the club chef for the Go Club or the Superior Club. Right after that, I realized that, hey, this was just a seasonal job. And then I applied. Somebody gave me an application for Ritz-Carlton. I applied, went, and did a tasting. Then I ended up being a banquet cook at the Ritz-Carlton Buckhead. And less than 6 months later, I was a junior sous chef. And then I just kept climbing the ladder until it got to the point where there was no room left for me to grow there. I became task force for Ritz for the East Coast. And before you know it, I had an F&B director that told me, "Hey, chef, you know you're better than everybody else, right?" I said, "In what way?" He said, "Many ways. You just need to take that leap." So I took his advice and I took the leap. And the leap led me to be the executive sous chef at the Hyatt, Paramita North. And then within a month and a half being there, I became the exec chef there. And then shortly after, like about a year or so later, another Ritz HR decided, "Hey, I'm at a different hotel. I needed to help fix this hotel." And then that's when I realized that I started becoming my mom. My mom was a chef a fix-it chef. Every time something opens in the Caribbean and Europe, that's who they call to fix the problem. And then all of a sudden I noticed that I was jumping from place to place to place to place, fixing stuff. I will fix it real fast, just like they taught me in the Army. And that's where my skill set from the military carried out throughout my career, because it's like they teach you in the Army, hey, get a job done and get a job done efficiently and get it done now. And that became my motto: get it done and get it done now. Now, with all that had the challenges of my PTSD, where there were times I would snap. There were times, matter of fact, there's times where I've even gotten in trouble because my PTSD acts so bad. I remember one time coming from the Braves and the fireworks went off. And I thought that I was back at war. And before you know it, the cop was telling me that, hey, you could come out from under your truck. I had already caused an accident and pulled off to the side. I went under my truck because I thought I was at war.
Wow.
So exactly. So it's a hard time. I went through, the VA created some programs. Everybody, if you're on here right now, that you could go to a counselor. It might take you a second to get in, but there are programs that help you. They're group sessions and then they're individual sessions. I want to tell you, some of us you might not do well at the individual sessions, but the group sessions would help you. The individual sessions didn't help me because the fact is that I have a counselor that's counseling me that have no idea what it's like to be at war, but they're telling me how to deal with what I dealt with at war.
Yeah.
How can you?
Yeah.
You can't.
Yeah.
And then,
So, with this great. I think the Army should have, the military should have you recruiting.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you, Herman. I mean,
and also navigating the VA system is me and Anthony and people. We know how slow and complicated it is. So I like what you're saying about telling our listeners and the veterans to be persistent and keep pushing.
yeah, the word is perseverance. And
Yeah.
as you went through the transition, Herman knows that word quite well, perseverance. You persevered and you were able to adapt. It's unfortunate that, the Afghanistan's experience created a PTSD scenario for you. But like you said, you were able to realize that the individual sessions were not for you, but the group sessions were for you and helped you. So your comments today will help other veterans who are struggling with that kind of scenario to seek other alternatives to give them some help.
Right.
You just don't realize that input will help.
In addition, it will help veterans that quite a few veterans, particularly veterans in Anthony and myself area, Vietnam era veterans, give up real easy and stop pursuing their benefits. Anthony, since we've been doing this for 7 years, we listen to a lot of stories, and we also have to encourage people to keep pushing and keep persevering, and you will get good results.
Yes, good results, perseverance, understanding the rules of engagement, especially with dealing with a bureaucracy like the VA. And I know that it is important for an individual like yourself and others to have a veteran service organization or veteran service officer to help you navigate that VA world of paper and bureaucracy. But I'd like to go back a minute. Tell our listeners a little bit about the training that you received at Fort Lee through the Quartermaster Corps and some of the organizations like the National Registry of Food Service Inspectors or the National Restaurant Association that helped you, because I know you were involved with the Philip A. Conley Award And a lot of folks don't know about how great that is.
All right. So the Conley, how to put it? The best way to put it in civilian words is the Super Bowl. It's the biggest competition you can ever go as a restaurateur. To be able to run a facility that takes care of soldiers, we're talking about 1,200 soldiers within an hour and a half feeding, and keeping that quality, the highest quality there is one of the most difficult things to do. The Army, the Department of Defense, this is not just the Army, this is Department of Defense. So the currently covers Department of Defense, where it's being judged by every facility around the world, including the Pentagon and the White House facilities. And what it does is that it judges you based off of your quality of food that you're putting out and how creative you can become putting that food out at the same time efficiently, and still staying within all the health records that there is. That was one of my goals when I was in. They told me that no chef could have ever competed and completely win all those categories in the same year. 2012 was my year. I not only took a team to the ACF competition. Now, ACF is not just, it's civilian, but it covers everything here in the U.S. The American Culinary Federation is big. They have a couple chapters here in Atlanta, along with a restaurant that merges with the Atlanta Restaurant Association. These are the areas that help transition soldiers, that's cooks, culinarians, from the military to the civilian world by paying part of these. And that's what that's how those organizations kind of help us stand up more than anything else. For me, it was a great opportunity. Matter of fact, I didn't even find out that I won until I retired. It was when I retired in January 2013 is when the results came back saying, "Hey, chef, you won the Conley. You got the Super Bowl ring." It's like, wow. And that's hard because it's a lot, like you just said, it's one of the hardest competitions there is to compete in.
The reason I asked you, because I was fortunate enough in 1985 to be one of the Conley evaluators for the large dining facilities. And I traveled the world extensively, 45 days straight, to different locations to pick out the Super Bowl winner for the large Conley award. And I really commend you, because I know how difficult that is. And the reason I wanted to bring it up is because that experience going through the Conley translates to you becoming the chief chef at the Renaissance Concord. And
Correct.
It's a good baseline. And I'm sure hoping that your general manager and others are listening today, because they can realize what your background and experience brings to that hotel.
Yes, it is. It is one thing that kept me grounded no matter what, because of how intense it is. It once you gain that background, once you gain that knowledge of how to put that together, it doesn't matter how many outlets you're running. That alone by itself, I mean, just imagine this. Even though it was a large garrison, award, it still kind of looked at what we did pertaining to field training. And just imagine this, you running a facility and having 20 food trucks going out every day that you manage, okay, that would go into different sites, and they're cooking live and they're cooking hot food for soldiers outside, and you're managing that while still managing your big facility. So yeah, it is it is the foundation for everything that we do.
So what is your percentage rating now? And are you still trying to pursue more if you're not at 100%?
I am 100%, but I'm at a workable 100% because I'm still under care. Believe it or not, even though it's been 10 years out, I'm still getting care by VA. It took me a while. We talked about, Mr. Anderson talked about TBI and what TBI is. I could actually touch on that because I actually am a TBI patient. That's the reason why I wear glasses. That last accident that I had in Iraq left me with a traumatic brain injury, to where my short-term memory, in order for me to remember short-term things, I had to learn how to associate it with things that happened before the actual accident, which that helps me stay grounded. And that's the only how I can remember things that's short-term, because the affected. That TBI has not, up until this time, this happened in 2010. Up until this time, the back of my brain is still bruised. It has not been healed properly, and constantly, ever so often, I have to have liquid drain off of my brain because it builds up.
Yeah, traumatic brain injury. It's something very serious. We commend you for fighting through it. We hope that your testimony would uplift others to know that you can still, as we say in Omega Land, see it through and to continue to move in a positive direction. Herman, I think he has a great story that he's letting our listeners know in regards to what he's doing and how he got.
Well, I totally agree, and I would like to ask him. I know the military is different today than when you went through and when you got out. What the veterans that we have today that are transitioned out of the military into the civilian world, what thought would you have, or recommendation would you have for veterans today that are transitioning and that are dealing with difficult situations?
With the transitioning part, the part that I missed that I wish that I had was the actual VA portion. There was no actual VA briefing, full VA briefing and full VA benefits briefing before getting out. That was not a full part of the transition. That being a part of the transition would help. One of the things that they would tell you, they try to, if you're being retired versus coming out, they try to discourage you by telling you, hey, choose your military benefits over the VA benefits because you'll get more. In all actuality, yes, your Army retirement is going to be there, but the VA is still there to support you whether or not you get that military benefits or not. So on the way out, part of the VA transitioning should be part of the transitioning. Get known by VA, know what benefits the VA has to offer you. Figure out where you're going before you get out. Figure out what state you're going. Reach out to that VA department in the state that you're going. Get with the DAV, the Disabled Veterans Affairs. The Disabled Veterans Affairs would help you navigate through that. Would help you navigate versus going straight to VA. Okay, they would do the legwork for you and help you get where you need to go. I had to transition from when I came out. I had to transition from using straight VA to using DAV to get what I need at the VA. And it wasn't until I used a DAV rep is when I saw success, when I saw things move. It picked up the pace right after I got involved with, right after I used the DAV. So the good thing, what I would suggest to anybody that's getting out is to reach out to a DAV rep before you get out. Let them know that you're transitioning. Let them know your transition date. Okay. Send them a copy of your orders before you get out, so they know what they can see what you have done and where you're going. Let them know where you're, what state and what city you're about to live in, so therefore they could help you zone into the area where you can get benefits. Like for instance, I live in Conyers. Whenever I need care, I have to go all the way to Fort McPherson or downtown Decatur. Okay, versus going to around the corner from where I'm at here at Covington, which is not even open every day or during the hours that I'm available to even go there. So they would be the ones to help you a lot while transitioning.
Okay. You mentioned two programs that President Obama started for military people during your transition, during your time there. I'm I don't know if you are current. Do you know if there's any programs similar to that for veterans today that are getting
I'm
out?
I'm not sure if I never researched. I went back after I got out to see if there were any other career fields, but those are the two most, those were the two potent ones that is still intact. Soldiers getting out, regular soldiers getting out, if they wanted to be a truck driver and they were driving equipment in, all they had to do was take a copy of their 348, and with their 348, they can actually go to the Department of Motor Vehicles, turn that 348 in with a copy of their license, and they won't even have to do the road test. All they have to do is a written test, and they'll get their CDL license. Whereas cooks coming out, they get ACF certifications right out of AIT. Right out of AIT, they get to become certified culinarians coming right out of there. So therefore, that's the first step to being a culinarian outside, because you're being a certified during their career field while growing. As they go back to each leadership school, whether it's A-NOC, B-NOC, or PLDC, each one of them would give them a different level of culinary, where they will actually do the exam at the end of that leadership training, and they will gain the degree plan for that. So therefore, when they come out, they can walk right out and they can use their VA benefits to go back to school to get a master's versus having to get the bachelor's, because they would have already been walking out with a bachelor's. So that helped build their resume when coming out, when all they have to do is get with a transition career counselor, and it would help them, teach them how to write their resume to showcase everything they've done and take what they've done in military and convert it to civilian.
Great.
That's great information. So are you going to continue to try and work with the counselor, even though you're at the 100% level now and dealing with TBI, but do you have a game plan to move forward to say about getting total and permanent or anything like that?
Currently, I had to end up getting new doctors and new counselors, because during COVID, all the doctors and counselors that I had apparently resigned, and I have not been able to get back all the doctors and counselors that I need to help me continue my treatment. So at this present time, that's what I'm looking for, and I'm going back and forth getting the individual counselors that I had back in place to help me continue seeing. But in the meantime, I continue to grow and find ways to grow.
Let me ask you a question. All of this is provided through the Atlanta VA system?
Correct.
Good.
So
That's good news. That is good news.
yeah, that's real good news. So have you been able to utilize transition some of that Army training to your staff there at the Renaissance to make sure that they comply to some of the philosophy you've learned in the military to make that operation even more efficient and taking care of not only good quality food, but also good customer service, et cetera?
I'm currently putting piece at piece together. It's the Atlanta Renaissance is a unique property. When I say unique, it's unique based on the fact that I've been to a lot of hotels, but this hotel pushes out, I mean, a lot, more than any other hotel that I've been to. It's like being back in the military again. So then, therefore, yes, I have been putting some of those stuff in place, especially when you talk about HISEP, we've been drilling it, and so happened that my boss is unique in a unique way, to where I've never had the support throughout my career like I've had the support from him. And it helps him being a chef to help me put those things in place. So we are going through some of those changes. The difference is that, yes, you could put those things in place, but what makes it difficult is that you're dealing with civilians versus dealing with military.
Yeah.
It's a
I
totally
agree.
different world.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a totally different world. During my military career, the early part, I was a drill sergeant for a second. I was a drill sergeant for 3 years, right? I can't be that drill sergeant that I would like to be. Okay. Because because they're civilians and they would not know how to operate. They shut down when you become that person. You're not going to get anything done. Then while going to food service, I became that mess sergeant. So just completely, you guys know what mess sergeants was in your career. So just imagine putting a mess sergeant and a drill sergeant together, what turnout that could actually be if I was to let that person exist.
Yeah.
So yes, I have to kind of tone it back. So therefore that person does come up. But there are days where I do let him out.
I
Yeah.
would like to ask you about the support group that you had. Do you have one down at the Renaissance?
It actually is a support group, but it's actually more like one person with a combination of a couple of other persons. So I had to figure out, okay, so I have a director of sales, right? She's not military, but she's military affiliated because her family members are in the military. Matter of fact, her brother's stationed at the same base that I just left. So she kind of tend to understand because she having to deal with her brother, she tend to would understand. So she has become part of that group. I have an older vet that's in your category of the military that was airborne. So airborne, he knows, he could tell when something is going wrong when nobody else will be able to tell. He could tell when that PTSD about to kick in, and he'll pull me aside and say, "Hey, chef, let's talk." So that, and the same thing goes for him with me. I could tell when he's about to go off the deep end. So that has become that support. He has become that support group to where to identify those things. She has become that support group to where I can go to her, talk to her, and she'll understand where I'm coming from because of the fact that she understands military. So that is a total support group that I've actually put together. Everywhere I've been managed to go, I've managed to find one. The place that I've been most, I had the biggest support was Ritz-Carlton because they actually had a VA rep there. So that helped with a lot of the transition and growth.
Right. That's very, very important for that to occur. I'm just so totally impressed by what you're saying because, when I go to the restaurant every day, my military kicks in. My food service background kicks in. And I understand the importance of customer service, quality food, and etc. So I can see some of that coming into place. And I'm glad to know that the GM has a food service background because that all relates to the cash register.
Yes.
If those things aren't in place, then the cash register is going to be affected.
Yeah.
So hopefully the GM, understanding your background, would allow you to flourish, train the staff. But in the meantime, it's really intriguing for us listening to your tremendous story and background that you're going to encourage others to see it through and to persevere and to deal with the VA and to deal with the PTSD and all that and still have a successful career. That's our goal.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. We'll move. We'll have. I'll have a few other questions in a minute. Anthony, you have a current event you want to mention at this time?
Yes, I think so. While we give the chef there a minute, I think our listeners really need to know that the timing is right and the opportunity is right for veterans who are looking for homes to utilize the VA system to get a home, that there are opportunities that they could have an adequate, adequate credit score, those kinds of things to go out and get a home utilizing your VA benefits. That's number one. Number two, there are opportunities under what they call the SHA program that they could get their homes renovated if they're at a certain percentage rating. So there are so many opportunities for a veteran once they go through the VA system that they can utilize. I know you, Herman, and we've been very successful in getting things done through the VA, but we were persistent. We persevered. So our listeners need to know, yeah, you might run into a little roadblock, but it's no different than you going to basic training when a drill sergeant was beating you up. All right. So what happened? You persevered to get through so you get away from that drill sergeant, right? So there's no difference with you as a retiree to go through that system in the VA to understand, yeah, I may meet some resistance, I may reach some red tape, yes, I may meet X factor, but see it through not only for yourself, because you've earned the benefits, not given to you, you've earned it, but not only taking care of yourself, but you're also going to be taking care of your family. That's the important thing.
That is, and as you mentioned, it's as veterans navigate the system, and we also know the VA system is slow. So it's to be persistent, to persevere, and as they say, don't take no for an answer. You have to keep going, try to go in another door, but don't stop. So that, and as we have been doing throughout doing this program, Anthony, we empower the community. We want to make the community aware of this knowledge, and we also do everything possible to make the veterans and their family aware of their entitlements and benefits, which we have earned.
My philosophy has been just like yours, is for every no is an opportunity to find a yes. So you can't quit. You must persevere and continue to move forward, just like you did in the military. I am just intrigued by your story. It's amazing how you were able to come from the Caribbean, following your mother's background as a chef, and to take that and move it into your life and all of the different opportunities you've had to take you to where you are right now at the Renaissance Concord. So I salute you for that particular perseverance, and continue to strive on. And you need to take yourself off mute, continue to strive and make sure that people under your leadership be the best that they can be.
Thank you. I appreciate that. The support to be able to bring it out and say it. I mean, it's a blessing. Sometimes one of the challenges that most people around me don't know is that with the PTSD and the TBI combined, the early morning starts is like the hardest start there is. It's like I still suffer from the nightmares and these are not nightmares of what we call the memory doing a physical dump of something that he might have created. These are actual nightmares of what have happened, things that still goes on. It still goes on in my mind. It still goes on. And so therefore, transitioning at work, I mean, for those of us out there that are suffering from it, you have to find a way to deactivate that. And it's one of the hardest way to do is to deactivate it. You have to try to meditate first thing in the morning to try to get it out of your system so therefore it could be functional.
Well, you know what? Herman has an organization dealing with a lot of Vietnam veterans, and I salute him because he gives those veterans the opportunity to share their experiences and to grow from each other. Just like I have a nonprofit, visually impaired and veteran, and the idea is to inspire and in spite of. I'm legally blind, as you know it. You see me walking around with my cane, but
Right.
I do not allow that disability to stop me to the point that I cannot function. I believe very strongly in that because I believe in myself, just like Herman being the leader of his organization motivates veterans from the Vietnam era to continue to fight.
Right.
Well, yeah, thank you for mentioning my organization. And it is Veteran Helping Veterans. We are almost 11 years old. And the vision, me and a college roommate from Savannah State, we went to Savannah State, and we were both Vietnam veterans. And his name is Lewis Jackson. He passed away, but we formed the organization after we started as Vietnam veterans in war in Vietnam, war exposed to Agent Orange. And we were applying for benefits and having to take different angles to get it done. So what my organization does, we help people get in the system because there are veterans in the Vietnam era that no, your DD 214, you don't remember what happened to it. So you got to navigate, get that document to get, if you're not already in the system, you have to get the DD 214 and all your medical paperwork. You have to be prepared when you file a claim and go for assistance. So my organization is Veteran Helping Veterans, and the contact phone numbers are 470-377-1917 and also 404-993-970. So let me give you those one more time. 770-377-1917 and 404-996-3970. And we are a membership organization. We were glad to have you join us, and we will help you whether you're a member or not. So that is contact information for my organization, Veteran Helping Veterans, headquartered in Atlanta.
That's good information, Herman. And I am sure that Sarge
Yes, I have.
would
I'm
be
writing it down.
be able to go back and share some of that information with friends in this network through that Vietnam era veterans, or actually Vietnam veterans that had boots on the ground, and the Air Force guys that were back in the Philippines, or the Navy guys that were in brown water and gray water, that, you know, they served during an era where they were exposed to Agent Orange and having PTSD and all kinds of illnesses associated with having Agent Orange, that there's help for them. There's help.
There is, and also, while I'm thinking about it, we meet twice a month, and we also have guest speakers. So Sarge is on my list.
Very good. Very good. Very good. We got to make sure that he sets up a food table in the back so we can make sure he's still good.
Definitely.
That'll be great.
You know what I mean? So is there anything else you like to let our listeners know about you and what you've done, and what kind of encouragement of parting words that you can give veterans listening to us worldwide?
For veterans, even for us worldwide, be advised that there are multiple organizations out there that can help you. Take advantage of them. I mean, Mr. Anderson just name one, and then you, sir, and say, you just name another one that I didn't even know of, the SHA, and then hopefully I get with you and get more information about that. But
Sure.
those are stuff that you guys need to out there that you need to constantly get in. Find vets. I mean, my neighborhood, I've literally lived in a neighborhood where half the road is vets, and that's my support group at home. So build yourself a network around yourself, and that support group is going to help you build. That's the main thing.
There's so much information online. We will always encourage veterans to sign up for My Healthy Vet, so they'll have access to their medical records, to sign up for va.gov so they can go out and take a look at the opportunities that the VA have for them. There's not only, and they have to understand that there's a medical side, and then there's the VA regional side. Under the medical side, there's HISA money that help you with getting your home renovated, or prosthetics if you need it. And then there's the regional side that can provide you benefits not only for education, but for voc rehab, for SHA. I mean, there's so many opportunities out there. But even if that veteran is not computer literate, they can have their spouse, a niece, a nephew, or uncle, or cousin to help them go online and take a look at those opportunities for benefits and compensations that they've earned. And we keep saying that, earned it because you served. So we encourage our listeners to please take advantage of something that the VA offers for yourself and for your family.
And one other point is like Sergeant mentioned, talk to a veteran, because the best way to build a relationship or to recruit someone is by just communicating with them. And there's we on Zoom, and we there's a lot of social media, but as the COVID-19 passed, people are beginning to like to talk face to face more. So one thing that one of my founders, Lewis Jackson, did is if he saw someone wearing a veteran hat or wearing anything to indicate they might be a veteran, he would go up and start a conversation with them. So.
Correct. And don't be afraid to talk to each other. We learn from each other's experiences. I'm glad that you're there at Renaissance and you can help people and to let them know that things are going to be okay if you continue to move forward. So I can just tell you, I know we're getting close to the end of our show, but you have brought a lot of good information forward to our listeners, and we want to thank you for taking the time to share your experience and background to help someone out there in our listening audience.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
We also would like to let our listeners know this is on YouTube and it's archived, so you can go back and listen to it at any time. And,
so you have any parting comments there, Sarge?
No. Hey, keep jumping, keep going, no matter what it is, no matter how hard it gets, keep going.
Well, thank you. One thing that we always like to do is give a big shout out to Ms. Vivian Greer, who's our technical advisor that keeps us together. And we also like to send a shout out to our queen at Penny Rogers, who has brought this organization together, the WCEG Network, of which the Veterans Today Talk Radio is only one segment of many other segments on this network. So please share the word that they can come on at any time and take a look at some of the archive shows that Herman just mentioned under YouTube for the WCEG network. And we just want to say thank you.
And our business office number is 404-490-8696. 404-490-8696. And we are a nonprofit. So please contact us, and if you are able, provide us a donation. With that, we have had a great show, and everyone have a good weekend. And thank you, Mr. Harris, very much. We appreciate you, and as veterans to veterans, thank you for your service.
And as I told you, we were excited about you being on there, and you did not fail. You did a tremendous job. You did great.
Thank you.
I hope the GM heard it, and all the other workers heard it, and they should be very proud of you over there at the Renaissance Concord. So again, we say thank you.
Thank you again. Appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, and goodbye. We'll see you later.
All right.